And we're off and running Saturday morning on the Krueger Show. The coach is in the house. It is May the 18th, 2024. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal day. Beautiful weather out here on the West Coast. No Little League today, though. Ah, man. I was fired up for, we've had some cold weather games. I was fired up for some nice weather. Play a little baseball today. But no, the playoffs, my team will not be playing until Tuesday night. So we are off today, and we're going to talk a little Niners. The coach is in the house. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket in you, and tell them that Krug sent you. And we're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue down in Pacific Grove. Call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use that promo code Krug, K-R-U-E-G, and they will match you up to your first $100. What's up, Coach? How's your Saturday going, man?
It's going pretty good. We got some inclement weather over here, so we got scattered showers. Got the boy out, ran him. So he's sitting there. A tired pup is a good pup. And redoing, I got a whole bunch of stuff, man. Like redoing my whole office this week. So
nice.
Yeah.
Like with what? Like you talking about painting, carpet, furniture, and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So I got a new desk.
Nice.
Got some monitors, just getting my productivity together. So I'm excited. I got a whole bunch of Amazon boxes sitting in the living room. So
nice. A little late. A little late spring cleaning, setting yourself up for a good office space for the summertime, huh?
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be dope.
Well, this was the schedule release week, and why don't we start right there with the schedule? There was a couple. I can't get exercised by the league is screwed us. The Niners do play 4 teams coming off a bye. I think it's the most in the NFL since 2002. They also have 8 games where they have a rest disadvantage. And I think only 2, Tampa and Miami, are the only games where they actually have a rest advantage. The Niners, it looks like, they open with the Jets on Monday night at home. They played the Lions in week 17 at home. They also have trips to Buffalo and Green Bay after Thanksgiving. They did get the Florida teams later in the year, so they don't have one of those September Florida nightmare games against the Dolphins, Jags, or Buccaneers. What'd you think of it when you looked at the schedule? We can play the exercise of who wins how many games. Kevin, I did this Wednesday night. He had him at 12-5. I had him at 11-6. The Vegas over/under is 11.5. So we're kind of seeing it probably the same way Vegas is. But I went win-loss, and did that whole futile exercise. And all I'll say is I don't know what's the best way to do it. I gave the Niners one loss that I'm sitting here going, they're going to win the game. You know what I mean? Just because I'm trying to be, as going win-loss when it's your team. I think if there's anything, we all tend to be a little bit optimistic. So to me, you got to mix in at least one loss where you're absolutely convinced your team is the better team, just to try to make it a little bit more realistic, because it's the NFL and good teams lose to bad teams. And so I had the Niners, Coach, losing to the Bears, which, I think the Niners are going to lose to the Bears? No, I don't think the Niners are going to lose to the Bears. I think there's only maybe a 10% chance maybe the Bears get them. But I just put it down because I just feel like there's always one game every year that, man, we're going to win. Like, the Niners were going to win in Cleveland, but they didn't win in Cleveland.
Right. There's that sticky game.
They're going to beat Arizona with Colt McCoy a couple of years ago. No, they didn't beat Arizona with Colt McCoy. So, to me, I think it's healthy if you're going to go game by game to mix in at least one loss that you think's a W. What was your thoughts on the schedule? I'm sure you talked about it a number of times this week.
Yeah. So for me, it's a tough schedule. We play some really good teams. Right now I have us probably looking at 10-7, maybe 11-6. I have us in that range. I mean, honestly, I'm more apt to go 10-7.
I definitely think there's more routes to the under than there are to the over. The over under is 11.5. I see more scenarios where they go under that number than realistic scenarios that they go over. But that's just me too. I mean, I try to be, I don't know, not realistic, but we kind of know the way these games that look easy in the offseason. I go, oh, the Niners will beat the Jets in week 1. Well, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But the Jets have a pretty damn good defense, and Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and you just never know.
Right. So we finished off. What did we finish off last season? 12-5?
12-5, I believe, with the fifth loss being kind of a asterisk, right? Because it was Carson Wentz against Darnold, and Niners had nothing on the line, really. So they probably could have gone, they probably could have gone 13-4, but they went 12-5.
So my notorious 9-8 from last year, I was off by what, 3 games?
Yeah,
I was off 3 games. So 10-7, 11-6. I feel like being in that range is fair for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Last year was hard, by the way, because last year not only we made
last year wasn't hard though, man. It was a down year.
No, not hard. Not a hard for the. It was hard to predict because you didn't know. You didn't know if Brock was going to be there. Was it going to be Trey? I mean, when we made these predictions,
there was a lot of questions.
And
I stayed on it. I stayed on it. So I will stay. Like I'm cognizant over the fact that I have 2 records out right now, which is 10-7, 11-6. Once we get to camp, I will give like literally one of those records. I will not deviate. Like, even when I made 9-8, I made 9-8 almost like, what was that? Like August, right before the season started. And I didn't change. So I'm not going to change as soon as I make this prediction, but I do have to see camp. It's way too early to call it now. Way too early. But the teams
it's almost futile. It's almost futile to sit there and have this, Well, week 8, and Denver's going to beat Seattle, then they're going to lose to Pittsburgh, and it's like, what? We don't even know who's going to be playing in these games. But the NFL Network turns it into a week of programming. ESPN does.
Right. So these are some games that I do think that we might have like some issues. Week 1, that's a real game. The Jets coming, right? And what I want to see is I'm more inclined to see our offense versus the Jets defense rather than our defense versus the Jets offense. I don't see us struggling with the Jets offensively. I do believe that we can that we have the defense now to face the Jets. Now, mind you, we're talking about this in May, okay? But if there was a path to losing that game, it would be our offense struggling against their defense, in my opinion. So I want to see how that game bears out. I want to see if we can run on that front 7. I want to see if Sauce Gardner and them boys can actually impose their will. We're supposed to be coming in with a revamped. I think our offense is going to look very different this year. I think we're going to come with a revamped spread offense. So I'm eager to see the new look of what we do on offense, or the new wrinkles, if you will, right? Because we're still going to have tenets of who we are from the basis of our offense. But I feel like that could be a tricky one. Of course, Kansas City. I believe that's going to be a game to watch. They seem to always have our number during the regular season. They seem to always have our number, period. But more so in the regular season. I believe that we're going to split one game with the Rams. I believe they've gotten much better, and especially offensively with their run game. That's something that we haven't necessarily seen from a Rams team. They can pass the ball all over the place. That's not a question. But what they do on the ground it's going to be different to actually see the Rams to be able to impose their will on the ground if they can. And it seems like throughout the offseason, we're going to get to teams that we've been impressed with. But throughout the offseason, I've been impressed with what they've been doing to fortify their offensive line as well as their run game with picking up, the kid out of Michigan. I believe that Green Bay is going to be an issue just because of optics. They know us very well. They played us very well the last time they played. They've done a very good job at strengthening their run game, bringing in Josh Jacobs, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh, Bringing him in.
Xavier
So
McKinney too. They added a Xavier McKinney on the back
yes,
end.
they did. They added Xavier McKinney and also the maturation process of Jordan Love. I mean, Brock isn't the only guy, isn't the only fan base that's eager to see what their quarterback is going to do coming into another year with a full year under him. And then, of course, Buffalo. It's Josh Allen. We got to see what what they're gonna look like. And also we got a little bit of a revenge game coming on ourselves, Detroit. I feel like they're going to be coming in real hot and bothered, trying to prove themselves off the game that they lost to us, and they walked out of that game feeling as though that they let that one slip through their hands. I don't believe so. I believe that they lost this game to experience and they got out coached. Dan Campbell made some blunders in that game where they deserved to lose the game, but for what it's worth, they played toe to toe with us until they didn't. So you got a young team that's done a lot. They paid their guys, so they know who their leaders are. And Goff is coming into town. So I believe that the Rams is going to be,
Lions.
The Lions, sorry, is going to be a tough game. Minnesota, New England, Arizona, I'm not really worried about. Seattle, we may split something. Dallas, they don't know how bad they are. Tampa may be a game. We'll see. The Bears could be a trap game, in my opinion. I agree with you. One game that is that's funky right here is Miami. See what we have to do traveling over to go see Miami and see what that offense looks like. I just don't think Miami has anything defensively. They don't really have a good defense.
Well, they just lost Christian Wilkins up front. I think they're going to have a hard time replacing him. And Jerome Baker, who I think Jerome Baker was their leading tackler, and Xavier Howard. I mean, they've lost some pieces on their defense for sure. It's a different looking line than they had last year. I had the Niners losing to the Rams twice.
You got them getting swept by the Rams?
I have them losing to the Rams twice. I have them losing to KC. And I have them losing to Buffalo. I have them losing to the Bears, as I told you. And I have them losing to the Lions. So I have them 11-6, but I have them beating Green Bay and sweeping Seattle, sweeping Arizona, basically sweeping everybody in the division except for the Rams. I don't know. It's more about when they play the Rams than the Rams themselves. But the Rams, I do think with Corum and Kyron and Puka and Cup and Higbee and Stafford and a remade offensive line
that offensive line is like gumbo now. They've been together. They're going to just get better and better. Yeah. I'm telling you. I mean,
I don't think the Rams defensively are much, but offensively, I think if you're one of these teams, the Rams are going to be one of those teams that they're going to win some games just because they're going to put up 30 and you're not. It's like they're going to put up 30 against everybody, I think, this year. I think that's a really, really good offense, especially if Stafford's healthy. The line's way better. Now they have more weapons. So I like the Rams to step up and maybe get the Niners a couple times, despite the fact that on paper Shanahan kind of owns.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you went there because I feel the same way about the Cowboys as I do about the Rams. Like just regular season, we always find a way to just outplay them, and we always outcoach them too. That's one thing I think the world of Sean McVay, but you got to call a spade a spade. In those games and during the regular season, he gets outcoached. So I have them splitting with the Rams due to what they've done in the offseason, and they're trying to find more syntax in their approach. So I get that with their offensive line, they're putting together their run game. But the Rams defensively, they lost Aaron Donald. Their linebacking core, they still haven't done anything to that linebacking core. Their linebacking core is what basically our secondary has been, like an afterthought in some respects. But I
just think it's situational. Like, look at the Rams month of September. They open at the Lions. That's probably a loss. Then they play Kirk Cousins and the Falcons in week 2 in Atlanta. That's going to be a tough game. They play 3 of the first 4 games on the road. The only home game they have in September is against the Niners. So I just think that they're going to circle the wagons and get one, but it's just guesswork more than anything. Every year I just kind of feel like the Niners are going to rampage the division except for maybe one team. Usually it's just one loss, but I have the Rams getting 2, but I just have a lot of respect for how good the Rams offense is. And I think they're going to be a challenge just because I think for everybody, because I think they're going to put up 30 pretty religiously because I think they got great weapons and a much improved line. But you never know. You never know on the schedule. The one thing I always look for in the schedule, I'm looking forward to the Harbaugh Bowl. I think that's going to be kind of cool. I definitely want to see, Caleb go up against Daniels. I think that game, we're getting that game, the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. But I always look to see what teams got screwed by the league. And what I mean by that is just that it's like if the league wants to give you, I mean, teams that start 0-2 rarely make the playoffs. Teams that start 0-3 really, really have a hard time making the playoffs. So it's like if you have a brutal September schedule, even if you're a good team, I mean, it can, all of a sudden things can kind of spin out of control. I was looking at some of the teams that had the tougher September schedules. Listen to the Raiders schedule, Coach. They go at Chargers week 1, at Ravens week 2, Carolina at home in week 3. That's not bad, but then they get Cleveland at home, who's a playoff team, in week 4. I think the Raiders get off to for sure 0-2, and maybe if they don't win that Carolina game, maybe 0-4. So I think the Raiders have a hard start. I think Washington's got a really hard schedule. I mean, you got a rookie quarterback, and if he's going to start right away, he's going to go on the road against Tampa in that humidity in week 1. Then the New York Giants in week 2. I think the Giants have had the Commanders upper hand on the Commanders. I think maybe I'm wrong on that, but it's a division game. Then at Cincy, at Arizona, and Arizona, you look at Arizona's schedule, they start at Buffalo, home against Rams. Then they get Detroit. So like they could be 0-3 going into that Washington game. So I mean that that game's going to be at Arizona. So I just think Washington's going to have a real rough one. I think the Raiders are going to have a real rough September. Arizona's going to have a real rough September. I think the Broncos with Bo Nix, I mean, at Seattle in week 1, and then you get the Steelers in week 2, at Tampa in week 3, at Jets in week 4. I mean, those are some really good defensives. McDonald in Seattle is a great young coordinator now, the new head coach there. So I just think if you're going to start Bo Nix, if you're Sean Payton, man, I mean, that's a gauntlet of good D in September. I think Denver's getting off to a slow start. And even Kansas City's got a tough schedule early on. They go Baltimore at home, Cincy at home. They're at home, but then they're at Atlanta, at Chargers. Wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs got off to a tough start. So I don't know. I always look at those September records to see. I mean, New England's going to get crushed. They're probably going to get the first pick in the draft. September for New England goes at Cincy, home against Seattle, at Jets, at Niners. They're probably starting 0-4. So you never know. It's you could 1 or 2 games go a different way, and suddenly it looks quite a bit different. But to me, there's 4 or 5 teams, including mostly the Raiders. I mean, Chargers, Ravens, and Browns all in September for the Raiders, and really the only winnable game is that home game against Carolina. The league, it seems like, never does the Raiders any favors on the schedule.
Yeah. For me, I'm just kind of looking at some things that pointed out to me with the schedule is like even when Detroit for the first 15 weeks of the season, they're going to play their entire season indoors.
That's wild.
That's wild. Like they're not good. They're not going to, I believe that they're going to be playing 2 outdoor games. Maybe their first outdoor game is playing at Miami. and then they come, and then we got to go see them. No, they got to come see us. So that they're going to be playing us on grass. I feel like
they're coming too. I mean, they got Terrion Arnold, they got Enos Rakestraw, they're from
mhm.
Marcus Davenport, DJ Reader up front. I mean, Detroit, their GM is an incredible GM, and they are the team that I fear the most in the NFC.
Yeah. I would say Detroit, and yeah, I would agree with that. They're young. They just paid their guys. They're galvanized. Defensively, they got themselves a lot of help on the back end. They went out and got some more defensive help up front. The Lions are coming, man. I'm just interested to see what we look like, though. How we look at the schedule will shape itself out more clearly as camp rolls out. We understand what the injuries are. Sidebar. Speaking of injuries, did you see Dre Greenlaw walk onto the stage to receive his award?
I did. When
It's
when do you
early.
think when do you
It's
think he's
early.
coming back? I mean,
I don't know. It's early. We'll show him grace because he deserves it. But it's early. That made my heart drop. I was like, he's not ready at all. Like,
oh well, but I mean, think about
yeah.
it. I mean, he blew his Achilles out on Super Bowl Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that used to be almost a
Done.
year and
Yeah,
a year. Well, it
exactly.
used to be done. I mean, Marino never moved around well. But then, Crabtree had it a few years, when he was with the Niners, and he did make it out, but he
Mm-hmm.
didn't quite have the same fluidity or explosiveness that he had
Yeah.
prior. But I mean, I think I think the Niners have to look at Greenlaw like he's done for the year, and you're not going to get him back this year. I think that's the way they got to look at it. And if they get him back this year, that's a pleasant surprise because I mean, realistically, if when it, I would say that's a 1 year injury. Well, if that's a 1 year injury, then he's not going to make it back until Super Bowl Sunday of next year. So realistically, I don't, and it's his career hanging in the balance. I'd rather
Yeah,
see
you
them be
don't want to
conservative.
push that because then what
Second
happens
one,
is you get all of these like auxiliary injuries, right? Like if you're
right?
pushing it, then it's like
ACLs
the
and
ACL, then it's a hamstring, then it may be a hip. And now we're dealing with all these type of other injuries because he's compensating.
right.
So
That's a
you do
major
got to
factor.
let him take his turn, let him take his time. But
I'm
it was
nervous about
just
this, to be honest. I mean,
me too.
I'm really nervous about this because the 49ers, and that kind of dovetails right into the next topic I wanted to get into, which is the more I've analyzed the Niners since the draft and looked at the roster and looked at the, how things could go and, looking really closely at everything now that we have the schedule. My big concern is the run D. Now, I know a lot of people's big concern is the offensive line, but my big concern is the run D. You didn't stop the run last year. You lost your best run D defensive tackle in Eric Armstead. You lost easily your best run D linebacker in Dre Greenlaw. And maybe for the year. And
You lost a solid shade in Javon Kinlaw.
you also
That's
lost.
big.
Yeah, you lost a big body up front in Kinlaw, who's definitely, had some strength there, who could not be moved. And then you also lost Hufanga, and the numbers were dramatically worse without Hufanga on the field, and we don't know when Hufanga's coming back. I mean, it's probably not going to be week one. So maybe Hufanga is your best run defender at safety. You lost your best run defender at linebacker. You lost your best run defender at defensive tackle, and you lost your only two gapper in Kinlaw. And, you weren't good against the run last year.
Mhm.
And are they going to be a bad run defense once again? I mean, that's the question I would have. It's like, and where does that, is Devondre Campbell going to step in for Greenlaw? Is he going to be,
No.
how's he going to do? And then up front, how about Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins? Are they going to step in for Armstead, and they going to be better than Armstead? I mean, it's like, so I'm very concerned about the run D. And when I asked Sorensen about it, he gave me kind of a nominal kind of like, yeah, we've addressed it, we've talked about it, but it wasn't convincing.
No. Yeah, right now we're a sum of all parts. The real issue is that Javon Hargrave is just not giving us anything what we expected for the price tag that he has right now. That's just the truth.
Yeah, he's got to
If
get
we're
better.
Yeah, if we're gonna if we can, and we're a conscientious bunch as fans, as supporters of this team, and Chase Young got the boot treatment from all of us, rightfully so. You know what I mean? And we let him hear it. And I'll tell you this, Javon Hargraves is next up. He's on deck. Like, he's got to be the next guy. He got to be the next guy that we turn our ire to and say, look, you're making a lot of money, bro. Like, we need you to lead now. No more of this at first. And this is why the Javon Hargraves, this is what you get for scouting for a trait instead of scouting for a player. Because Javon Hargraves was brought in here as an expensive ornament because he knows how to rush the passer from the inside. That's his number one claim to fame. But we compromised on knowing that he is not a stout run defender, right? And he was surrounded with very good players with the Eagles where he was able to be packaged. He's not a
same with
package guy
the
anymore.
Steelers. I mean, this guy played next to Cam Hayward in Pittsburgh, played next to Fletcher Cox in Philly. These are two of the most dominant run defenders in the game. And then he comes here, and it's like they had no run D, and they sold out. You know, they wanted that interior pass rusher so bad that they took their run D apart. They said goodbye to Mosley and Aziz and Ebukam and Ridgeway and Jimmy Ward. They took 4 or 5 good run defenders, and then they just said kissed him off all for Hargrave, and then they looked up and said, it's shocking. We're not as good against the run. I mean, it's to me, what they've done on defense the last couple of years has not been that impressive.
Yeah, well,
they were third against the run, by the way, statistically. Yeah, so there's an example of how stats truly lie.
Stats do lie, right? And they're dead numbers. And if you don't know the context in which those stats lie, you can deceive. They can be deceiving. I wasn't impressed with our run D, particularly from the defensive line and a little bit from the linebacking core. I mean, Fred Warner did not have all good games every year. Then that 3-game slide, Fred Warner was struggling to tackle and be a force that we know he is. But I will say that this is something that's been around for a little over the course of almost 2 years now. I had us going 9-8, and that was because of the joint practices with Oakland. When I heard about those practices so close to the season, and then we actually saw the game and the reports, I listened to your reports of the joint practices that we had in Las Vegas, right? And the reports were that we were getting dogged up and down the field on team period, and they were running the ball at will on us, and we could not stop them. And this is with our starters in the game. I mean, in scrimmage. And the thing about scrimmage is that you get specified looks so you don't waste time. So when you can't stop something in practice, it's almost kind of like, all right, we failed at it, but we got to keep moving on, right? We're sharing time with another organization. But once I saw the Xerox of what the reports were into the preseason, and I remember this, the chat was killing me. Like, this guy cares about preseason. Remember that conversation? Why do you care so much about preseason? How in the world do you care about them stopping the run? Why do you care so much? And it's just like, but it's still football, though. And not only is it football, but it speaks to real football, which is the depth of our team, right? So obviously you want your ones to be good, but that's not a season. In a season, guys get on the field, guys play. So again, we're going to have to use the same regs that we used last season and look at this defensive line. And this year, what makes me less confident about this year's defensive line versus last year's is that last year they got rid of the depth, but at least they covered it up with a high price free agency signing. Then they had to subsequently go get the depth throughout the season, right? We had to go pick up Chase Young. We had to go get Randy Gregory. We had to go get Sebastian Joseph Day. We had to actually go get the depth that we lost in the offseason. But this year, I feel like they went and got depth, but they lost pieces, like real legit guys that play spurts of time for us. So for me, does Malik Collins and what's my boy from
Jordan Elliott?
Do they pass the smell test? You know, like, is this enough, right? Is Leonard Floyd's going to start? That's our starting edge. He's our right defensive end.
I'm not sure if he is as far as like first and second down. My plan would be, man, play Yatir Gross-Matos and then play Leonard Floyd on third downs. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, he's going to, I mean, that's the question. I mean, like, that to me is the $64,000 question with the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Jordan Elliott, Malik Collins combo an upgrade, a lateral move, or a downgrade from Arik Armstead? That's question number one. And then you could ask that same question about Floyd and Yatir Gross-Matos compared to Chase Young and Randy Gregory. Now, I think Yatir Gross-Matos and Floyd are an upgrade on Gregory and
Chase Young.
And Chase Young. I definitely do. I think Floyd has got a better motor. I think he's more of a speed guy, but he also has to be limited because he is a speed guy. You have to really protect him on first and second down. You can't put him out there like they put Chase Young out there on first and second down.
And he's a little older in the tooth. He's 32.
Right. But I mean, that's what they get. But a lot of people feel like Yatir Gross-Matos may give them something. We'll see. Is Drake going to give them anything? Is Beal going to give them anything?
That's the question.
There's a lot of questions on this defensive line. I mean, there really are. And most notably, is Elliott and Collins going to be lateral upgrade or a downgrade from Armstead? And I don't know. I can't really speak to that. I mean, the Pro Football Focus grades say that Jordan Elliott was the sixth best defensive tackle last year against the run. And yet I've got people who claim that they know people from who, around the Browns and fans of the Browns and media of the Browns that thought he was terrible. So I liked him at Missouri, and I think he's got great feet for a 300-pounder, but we'll see. Malik Collins is enormously strong. If it's the same player I remember, coming into the league out of Nebraska, but now he's considered more of a pass rusher. So I got to see it. The other question is, what were the Niners actually going to get out of Arik Armstead with his plantar fasciitis and his meniscus injuries and his knee pain and that kind of, is he going to be healthier in his 10th year than he was in his 9th year? I mean, I think I kind of agree with their assessment that, is probably wise to move off of Armstead. So, I mean, but to me, the major loss is Greenlaw. I mean, the Niners' run D last year was not good. Even though they were third, it wasn't good. And, they got gashed in the preseason. I asked Shanahan about it. He's like, I said, are you concerned? You're getting gashed in the run game. And he's like, I would if I thought it was all based on, what we were looking at in the preseason, but we were really good against the run last year. Yeah, but that didn't take into account the fact that last year you had Ridgeway and Aziz.
You lost 7 guys.
Ebukam and Jimmy Ward and Manuel Mosley, and you lost all your good run defenders.
Aziz Al-Shaair, you lost a ton of great players.
Yeah, and so that was a precursor to what we were going to see. Now, the Niners statistically look good against the run, but that was just because Brock Purdy and the offense was putting up over 30 a game. And guess what happened? Dallas
can't run
stopped
the ball
running.
when you're down.
Pittsburgh stopped running. The New York Giants stopped running. There were 4 or 5 teams on their schedule that didn't run on them, not because they couldn't, just because the scoreboard got away, the game got away from them. But then Cleveland ran at will on them, and when it mattered in the playoffs, Aaron Jones rumbled up and down the field and came one run away from beating them. And then Montgomery and Gibbs gashed them in the Detroit game. They got pushed around. Kansas City had success running the ball in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, it's just like, I think the run D is a problem. And when I asked Sorensen about it, his answer was like, well, I said, hey, man, that Detroit game, you guys got pushed around. up front. And he's like, yeah, well, in that game, we gave up some runs, but we've addressed it and we've looked at the film and we've, I mean, he didn't give any specifics, but he said we've addressed it. We're going to find out. We're going to find out because to me, last year, as I said, they were third against the run because teams, their offense kind of prevented teams from running on them. But once the book gets out that you can really run on the 49ers, and I think after watching those playoff games, how is that not the book? I just think that they're going to be challenged more earlier and more often by teams trying to dominate them at the line and run it down their throat. And if they can't defend it, that's all they're going to see all year. So to me, this is the primary question going into the year. Can they stop the run on D? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, we're gonna see. But at the same time, we got to know where we are on the map. We're literally talking about the run D, but we are a complementary football team, and I feel as though that it is the coach's job to understand the ebb and flow of that balance. And who knows? We may be an offensively led team this year, where the defense is very good, but it can't be, what we're customarily used to, which is throwing the entire game on the defense and making sure that we just beat teams with whatever the defense can hold. I just don't think that right now what we've got on defense, we're just gonna have to give them grace on optically what they're gonna look like. We got Brandon Staley in here. Nick Sorensen is a new defensive coordinator. So I want to be able to just give them the space to see what they're going to do with this team. One of the things that we do have to be honest about is we're judging them based off of their best past work, right? So they're almost kind of like a prisoner to their own reputation, because we've seen the depth and all of the guys that they've had, where if you think about it, like, these guys weren't plucked from free agency. These were homegrown guys that got built. So that's the original sin. The original sin is that we've got young guys who are not producing on the defense, right?
Well, and we're going to get to that too, because you're right. You're absolutely right about that. Maybe they're not producing because they aren't good, or maybe they're not producing because they haven't just gotten on the field yet. Like in the example of Jalen Graham, I'm convinced that Jalen Graham is a very good linebacker, but he didn't get on the field this year. And I don't know if he's going to get on the field next year, because it sounds like they're going to start off with Devondre Campbell, but I think Graham could really be an impactful guy at linebacker.
Yeah, and I think Devondre Campbell is our next Taco Charlton. I would be very surprised.
Really?
I'd be very surprised if he makes it out of camp. Remember when Taco Charlton came here and he had like a ridiculous week of camp?
Well, he looked like their best defensive end the first day he walked in, which should have been a bad omen, really.
Yes, and then before you know it, he was gone. Like, he was gone as fast as he came. So I feel like Devondre Campbell is a guy who, healthy, I would be thrilled, right? If this was 2021 Devondre Campbell, all pro Devondre Campbell, we basically got a steal, right? But he's not that anymore. And his side of it is he was misused. Yeah. And that he wasn't necessarily utilized in the correct way. And I guess he's trying to virtue signal towards that being the reason why he is injured. But that could be the reason why he got injured. But that doesn't still change the fact that you, in fact, were injured. And we need to understand what type of player you are now. So there's real consequences to those injuries. And I want him to be the player of 2021, but that's another wait and see, right? That's another wait and see right there. I can't be confident at all that he's going to be what he was in 2021. And in 2021, he wasn't better than Dre Greenlaw. So we're already dealing with the player that's going to be worse than what we were expecting. So, take with that what you will. What I am looking at is Graham and Winters. It's time. There's a lot of guys who, because we've been doing so well from the top end of our team, there's a lot of known contributors on our team that kind of just are around, and they look really dope in a, running down on kickoff or getting a really good punt tackle. I mean, getting a really good tackle on punt return or something. But like, it's time for us to get rid of like the residual pieces, like the Flanagan Fowles and guys like that. It's like, no, bro, if you're not growing to start to actually like push somebody, then you can't be here. So I feel like that's permeated some of the young guys where, they feel as though that there is, these guys cast a big weight. It's Dre Greenlaw, it's Fred Warner. These guys are the starters. These guys are all pros. And, I've been on teams where you play in front of a guy that's so good. In a way, you're not really thinking like, man, when am I going to get my chance to get on the field? You almost kind of fit in where you think you belong, which is 2 steps back and to the left. Now it's time for us to start looking at these draft picks, right? Because that's why we got to the level of defense that we did. We drafted Dre Greenlaw. We drafted Fred Warner, right? These guys were picks. We drafted Jimmy Ward. Emmanuel Mosley was drafted. Demo was drafted. We need to see what's my man? Robert Bill we got to see what he's going to do, right? We got to see what Drake Jackson is going to do. It's time. They got to step up and give us something.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt. I mean, this leads me right to, I did this video this week, and to me, I called it now or never, right? So let's do this exercise. I got 12 players here, 12 players that I think enter this year's camp in a make it or break it type situation, right? Every single one of these guys has enough talent to make the team and maybe even make an impact on the team. And they also have just enough question marks to wash out and give them nothing and and basically have it be like, hey, it's never happening. And I really think it's now or never for these 12 guys. So I'll give you the name, and all you got to say is it's going to happen now or it's going to happen never. And if you think that there's somebody that doesn't fit the description, then go tell me why you think it doesn't fit the description. But to me, all these guys are now or never guys. And I want to know from you now or never. All right, here we go. Here's the list.
Okay.
Danny Gray, now or never?
Never.
Okay, he's got 1 catch for 10 yards in his career. Ronnie Bell, now or never?
Never.
I know how hard that one is because he's shown some things, but
he's shown something. But we got to talk about I'm looking at the echelon of our team, like what it takes to be the best.
And there's no room at the end for Ronnie Bell. There's only so many spots.
The best teams in the league are cutting guys that are going to be starters or contributors on other teams, and we have to be that team every year.
Yeah,
we got to be one of those teams.
Tay Martin,
never.
Now or never?
Never.
And
that hurts.
Spencer Burford, now or never?
Now.
Okay. Nick Sikel, Brock Purdy's good buddy on the offensive line, now or never?
Never.
Cam Latu, now or never?
Never.
Braden Willis, now or never?
Never.
Jordan Mason, now or never?
Now.
Drake Jackson, now or never?
Now. We need him.
Kalia Davis, now or never?
Never.
Robert Beal Jr., now or never?
Never.
Samuel Womack III, now or never?
Never.
Wow. Okay, so that's interesting. So those are the 12 guys. I went 6 and 6. I went 6 nevers and 6 now. So my nevers, Danny Gray, it ain't happening. Ronnie Bell, never. Even though I like Ronnie Bell and he's going to make the NFL, they might be able, if he has a nice preseason, they might be able to trade Ronnie Bell for a day 3 pick because if he has another, you remember last year in the preseason he had a 115-yard day or something. If he has another 100-yard day in the preseason, there probably will be a team that would give you a 6th or 7th round pick for Ronnie Bell just because he is cheap and he is he has been productive. But I don't think, you've got JJ, you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk. Nobody's going anywhere. You just added Pearsall. You just added Cowing.
Like so
You
you
only
got to
have
look
5
at what they're
spots,
doing.
maybe 6. I mean, these
Yeah,
guys aren't making it.
they're not.
Um,
Yeah, and but listen, this is I want to. I'll explain my nevers along with your nows, but understand that my nevers come with context of onward and upward, man. Like
yeah, you
it's
don't get forever. It's the NFL.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, Nick
Yo,
Sickell and some of these guys,
man.
Tay Martin. I mean, I love a lot of these guys as well and their potential, but you not NFL, not for long. Not
Yeah,
for long. You don't get.
yeah.
There's a whole nother crop of rookies coming in that are cheaper and younger and healthier. Okay, Spencer Burford, I went now.
Mm-hmm,
I'm with you on that one. Nick
mm-hmm.
Sickell, I went never.
Yep.
Even though I do like Sickell as a prospect. He's 6'6", he's smart, he's tough, he's got long arms, but it's now or never. And to
Mm-hmm,
me, it seems like I haven't seen enough so far.
mm-hmm.
Cam Latu, I said now, just from the standpoint of I think Latu, Kittle, and Mason Pline are going to be the 3 tight ends. I don't like any of the other tight ends. I don't like Tongues. Is Braden Wilson nice guy, but I don't, to me,
I don't believe
no.
in it. And I
He's a
think the Isaac
fullback size
Garindo
guy.
pick, the Isaac Garindo pick kind of X'd him out to me.
Right. There's no room for Braden Willis.
Yeah.
But if Cam Latu, starts catching the football, he's got a shot.
But imagine saying that though. I think he gets beat out by the UDFA. Pline.
Yeah. No, I know, but I mean, they're going to go with 3 tight ends. And I think Latu physically is the best tight end other than Kittle. It's just physically. I mean, you saw him.
I'm a Bama guy.
Yeah,
like
I was a linebacker,
him,
but I'm giving him the red shirt excuse that he wasn't ready for the Niner camp last year. I'm expecting him to be worlds better this year, to be honest. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, he's a classic example of a guy who was thinking too much. I saw him at Alabama. His hands were not that bad. He looked like he had the worst hands of all time last summer. And I just think that was just kind of –
I just don't think –
mentally, I think he was overwrought by how much he was having to take in.
Look at it this way. It's not what we think he can do. Do I believe that there's like meat on the bone? Yeah. Like I believe that he needs to get settled. I mean, if you had to have the worst camp of your rookie career, he pretty much, met the bar. So there's only one way but up, right?
Right.
I mean, John Lynch all but said that he basically injured himself onto the team. Like if he wasn't hurt, he would have got cut as a pick.
No doubt.
Right. So I understand that line of thinking. However, you have to marry his situation with the coaching staff, and that's Kyle. I don't think Kyle has the patience. I don't think he has the patience.
Well, he forget think. I mean, he most definitely does not have the patience.
I'm trying to be nice.
It's proven. But you got to remember this. Who else is it going to be? I mean, Robert Tonyan just signed with the Vikings. There's not a lot of options out there. The only other tight ends they lost Dwelly. He's in Atlanta. They lost Warner. He's there too. They have Willis, who looks like a fullback. They have Jake Tongues, who's a practice squad guy. They have Mason Pline, who's a nice receiver. I think he'll make it, but they usually go with 4 tight ends.
Okay.
I have them going with 3, Kittle, Latu, and Pline.
Well, we could wrap up the Latu conversation with one question. Can Cam Latu give you what Charlie Warner gave us?
I think so.
All right, then. So then he may have a spot. So.
He is not he's not going to be quite the drive blocker, but he should be quite a bit better as a receiver. Okay. And I mean that's really setting the bar low because Warner, I think, caught 1 ball maybe all year.
Right. And it's not like there's a lot of tight ends that get the ball. I mean,
but he's an athlete. I mean, Latu's an athlete.
He's an athlete.
He's 6'4", 250. He's athletic. I mean,
he's strong. He's an asset on the field. I mean, he is going to be a ball player for us if Kyle can, be patient with his
Well, if
with
this
his
kid can
maturation
wake up,
process.
I mean, you don't, last year he dropped everything. I mean, he dropped everything. He dropped
Right.
more passes than he caught. So this year, we got to see, he's got to make a market improvement. And it sounds
Oh,
like Shanahan's challenging him by, somebody asked him, hey, is Latu your number 2 tight end? Because the media is looking at the depth chart and they're looking at it and they're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, that he's probably the best athlete other than Kittle at that spot.
excuse me.
And
Yeah.
Shanahan's like, no, he's not my number 2 tight end. He's got to show up and work first. He's got to practice first. So I don't know that he's been hanging
he is
out.
my number 2 tight end. I just don't want to let him know yet.
Right.
But
Like we're dangling the carrot. We're giving this
exactly. We're
jack.
dangling the carrot in front of him. And hope, I mean, he's used to that type of coaching. That's Coach Saban type coaching.
Yeah.
So he's used to it. All right, let's do it this way. So we already got George. Let's say Cam Latu replaces, because we know we're all about skill sets on this team. So Cam Latu takes over Charlie Warner's skill set, and then Mason Pline, he almost fits Ross Dwelly.
Right.
Right.
No, I think he does. I think he does. And I think Pline's going to be nice. I really do. I think people are going to like Pline. Yeah. He's a little knock-kneed, but I mean, he's got upper body strength. He high points the ball. He's got big time hops. He's got huge hands. He's really, really smart. I think he's going to be nice. Well, I don't know if he's going to be a star, but I think he's going to play. I think he's going to make the team. So anyway, I have never I've got now on Latu. I've got never on Braden Willis. I have now as well on Jordan Mason. I have now on Drake Jackson because they need him. They desperately need him. I have never on Kalia Davis. I'm with you on that. You can't wait around for him. But where we disagreed were on the last two. I have now on Beal and now on Womack. You can't, like last year they got rid of Deshaun Jameson and he wound up in Carolina and he wound up being on their roster all year. And then the Niners needed corners and were signing guys, Anthony Brown and all these different guys late in the year, looking for corner depth. Don't cut Samuel Womack or Luter. I didn't even put Luter on this list because I want Luter on the team. But I mean Luter and Womack, and I'm keeping one extra corner this year. I'm preserving that depth because you just can't. And there's only so many guys who have the body type and the ability to play the corner. And if you got those guys, and this year they added Yadam, and they've got Luter, and they've got Womack, and you still have Ambry. I'm just saying, it's like,
and then we just drafted Renardo.
I mean, I'm going with 6. I'm going with
so
6.
How do you keep Sam? You know what I'm saying?
So this would be my 6.
Ambry's the odd man out.
Mooney, Lenore, Renardo, Ambry, Luter, Womack.
You're getting rid of Yadam?
And maybe Yadam. Those are my 7. I may be keeping 7.
You said you're going to keep 6.
I know. I 6 would be a lot. I may want to try to see if I could keep 7. I guess I could have a competition. Well, I mean, I'll say this. I like competition at corner. I mean, there's no question about that.
Maybe that's why I said never on. I like Samuel Womack as a player for what we expect out of him, but if he's not getting on the field, and we're having a competition at the position, I want the loser of that competition to be the backup, not some guy that sat there on the outskirts the entire time.
No, I hear you. I the one spot I like having, depth at is corner, because when they're gone, they're gone. You know what I mean? It's like, then you got to call a guy off the street. I mean, the guy that you're getting is several rungs beneath the Womacks and the Luters that I'm going to try to retain as much depth as possible. Maybe there'll be an injury.
Though, Larry.
Oh, I know. Well, maybe those are my 7 guys. And then, and there's also Chase Lucas, who's a special teamer. We'll see. I mean, but if I can keep 7, I'm keeping 7. I mean, I'd rather go with 2 tight ends And I'd rather go with 2 quarterbacks and and put somebody on the practice squad and keep an extra corner. All right, here's the next
So you're
topic.
basically okay with starting the full 53 with 53 corners.
Yeah, seriously, it's 50 corners and Purdy. Yeah, no. All right, here's the other issue. So if I think the number one issue is the defensive line and can they stop the run, so that another reason that I was hoping for like a Rororo instead of Ricky Pearsall in the first round, but whatever. They went with Pearsall. We'll get to that in a second. A lot of people feel like the primary need, if you say primary need, we had 100 Niner fans sitting in here. What's their primary need? Some people would agree with me and that it's the run D. The other people would probably argue it's the offensive line. And the Niners' interior offensive line was 4th worst in the NFL as far as how they graded out according to Pro Football Focus. They added in the draft Dominic Pooney in round 3, Jarrett Kingston in round 6, and then Drake Nugent as an undrafted guy and Bryson Mays as an undrafted guy. I'll say this, after reading all the reports, doing all the reading everybody's, every scouting report I can find on every single guy they drafted, and then watching minicamp, if there was one position that I do feel better about since watching, reading all these reports and watching minicamp, it is the offensive line. I don't know about Mays, because Mays to me looked a little on the small side, and looked like he needs some upper body muscle mass. But Drake Nugent is a wide-bodied center who is short but powerful, and Kingston is kind of a beast. As far as the strength and the movement ability, he moves really well and he's strong as an ox. And then Pooney, really, I thought Pooney on the offensive side and Mustafa on the defensive side, I thought were the most impressive 2 players in minicamp. I love what I've seen from Pooney as far as his athleticism. So I'll throw it to you. If you're Forster, if you're Shanahan, do you run it back this year and start and go with the old alignment of, obviously you got Williams and Banks on the left side, but do you go with Brendel and Feliciano and McKivitz, or do you try to inject some of the new players in there right away and tell Feliciano or Brendel or McKivitz you're riding the bench? How would you play your hand? What is the Niners' best 5-man offensive line left to right in your mind?
All right. Well, I can touch on this from a lot of different angles because O-line is this is our baby.
That's your deal.
Yeah. So right now I do see what the 49ers did. All right. So the offensive line isn't the best, but you got to keep in mind we took this offensive line to the Super Bowl. All right.
Right. And it wasn't like they went 3-14. They had a good year.
Yeah. All right. So that plays. So offensive line, in my opinion, is it's like team racing with horses. You gotta, all 4 horses pass the finish line, and if you mess up with one of them, you can completely throw off the whole team. So with me, I see some future proofing that they did with the offensive line, as well as some competitions that they want to start bringing in, and some immediate guys, right? So I feel like Garrett and the center, Newt
Kingston, you mean Jarrett Kingston?
Garrett Kingston and
Brendel, or Nugent, Drake Nugent.
Yeah, Nugent. I feel like those are future-proof positions for Banks and Brendel, right? I see Kingston playing at left guard. I think that he's stronger and more physical than what Aaron Banks gives you. And I just had a conversation with PDXer in the chat, and I agree with him. You could argue that Aaron Banks took a step back this year in production. And
it's a part of year for him this year too, because he's a free agent at the end of the year.
Exactly. So, and part of it is he played with a lot of injuries. He had that turf toe, then he had the pec, then he had the bicep,
concussion.
Then he had a concussion, right? And he was really banged up last year. And for what it's worth, you may be getting the best out of what you can see out of Aaron Banks because he's already done a lot to himself since he's been in the NFL. He had to completely revamp his body. He's had those persistent shoulder injuries. And I do believe what he's being asked to do at that left guard position is deteriorating his body. I do like Garrett Kingston at that left guard spot. I think that he's faster. Definitely just optics wise, physique wise, a much more impressive player. Stronger. All right. He's got very strong hands, very good feet. I see the same thing for Nugent and Brindle. I think that Brindle is just a little long in the tooth. All right. And
a little, I mean, let's be honest about a little underpowered. Small. Yeah. I mean, DJ Reader moved him around, and now DJ Reader's in Detroit.
Yeah. Everybody knows. I mean, we all have etched in our brain that I think it was a 4th and 1 against Cincinnati. And
where Brendel got thrown backwards by Reader.
Thrown into Kyle Juszczyk. Yes, like thrown out. And that is a regular occurrence if you pay attention to the trenches as much as we do. So I do see Nugent being a future-proof spot, or Kyle may let him compete. I don't know. But the true competition is that right guard spot. I see Pooney fighting for that right guard spot and winning it. How
about Hubbard at right tackle?
Yeah, I understand. Right, Hubbard at right tackle, McKivitz. I was just about to say, I really believe they like Colton McKivitz at that right tackle spot.
Oh, they clearly do. They clearly like him.
I believe they like him there, and for the money, they love him there. So also he played a full season. One thing I will say about Colton McKivitz is that what he lacks in technique, one thing about Colton McKivitz is that once he deals with a body that is of the requisite size of his own, because he is a big man, that's where he gets in trouble. He doesn't know how to operate with spatial awareness. He doesn't use independent hands at times because he's not as powerful with one arm. He gets long-armed a lot by defensive linemen, showing that he postures way too high out of his 45 set. And then when he comes out of his vertical set, he's ballsy. Pause. But he's on the balls of his feet, right? He's not rooted in the ground. And those are some things that serve him well in the run game because he does have nimble feet and fast on getting out in the open field on the run game. But it kind of hurts him in the pass game. But I feel like that's something that they're okay with. It's an accepted risk that they're willing to take on. So I don't necessarily think that Hubbard is going to push Colton, especially with them giving him. I think they gave him $7 million this year. Am I correct?
McKivitz?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's making 7, which is a bargain for a tackle, but
it's generational money for him.
It's also an amount of money that almost guarantees he'll start.
Exactly. And it's an amount of money that he's never seen before in his career. So I traditionally, now that the draft is over, we all should smack ourselves. Like, did we really think that the Niners were going to go and start picking off the tree of offensive linemen and giving us all of these juicy? No way. They understand that the bread that there is buttered on is their weapons. They put their money in
organization.
Receivers.
Yeah, I mean, this is an organization that is historically never drafted offensive linemen high. Bubba Paris was a round 1 guy. That was 1982. Harris Barton was a first round guy.
Coach Harbaugh changed that though.
Yeah, they did. They did with Yapati and Anthony Davis.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying this is the organization of Bob McKittrick, who Sapolu and all these guys were 11th round picks, late round guys, undrafted free agents. Even Forster, it seems like they really defer to their offensive line coach. It's like, why did they get the offensive linemen they got? Because those are the offensive linemen that Chris Forster wanted. That's really it. I mean, I don't want to say that Lynch and the scouts had nothing to do with it, but I mean, it's pretty clear that like when it comes to running backs, they don't draft a running back unless Bobby T signs off, and they don't draft an offensive lineman unless Chris signs off. So in a way I like it. We'll see if it works out. In a way I like it because at least there's no disconnect between, hey man, the scouts like this guy, but the coach couldn't stand him. at least when you let the coach pick some of his guys, at least he's got a little bit more ownership of it. And it's like, hey, man, this is the guy you wanted. And I really believe that. I really believe that Bobby T wanted, like probably Cody Schrader and Garendo, and he probably really wanted, Forster probably wanted the guys that the Niners got. I personally, if it was me, now nothing against Brendel, because Brendel was a Pro Bowl alternate. Brendel's been a success story, right? They signed him as a street free agent. He emerged as a Pro Bowl alternate. He's been a center on the team that went to the Super Bowl. So it's not like he's some shitbird. But at the same time, I think you can upgrade there. And I think he's not good against the stronger nose guards. So I would be, to me, it's obviously Trent and then Banks at left guard. And then at center, I think I'm going with somebody else. I think I'm either going with Kingston if he can play center. I'm going with Nugent if he can play center. I think those guys are stronger and are going to give you more of a pop and a presence in the run game. I think that's more building that wall that I want to see built around Brock Purdy in the interior. I think you need a stronger guy. I don't think you can go with Brendel. I think he gets pushed back into the lap of the quarterback. And then at right guard, Feliciano to me is a backup at this point. To me, it's about Burford versus Pooney. I want to see Burford get every shot to win that job, and if not, I want to see Pooney get every chance to win that job. And then I think it's McKivitz. So to me, it's like I would tell Feliciano and Brendel, you guys are backups, and I would go with Nugent or Kingston at center, and I would go with Pooney or Burford at right guard. And I would not enter this year with the same offensive line that you finished last year. I would be proactive and promote. I think Pooney looks really good. And I actually thought Drake Nugent looked really, really good. As far as he's so wide, he's smart, he's really strong. You can kind of tell that, and he's got decent agility. So I don't know. I mean, he was
don't think they're going to
first
pay
team
Aaron
All Big
Banks.
Ten at Michigan this year.
I just don't think they're going to pay Aaron Banks. I really believe that Jared Kingston is here to play left guard. I don't see.
But you don't think you wouldn't start him over Banks this year, or would you?
Like to see what he plays? You first of all, and that's one thing with offensive linemen too, man. Like, if you're coming in the league and you're a backup offensive lineman, chances are you're going to be a backup offensive lineman for your whole career. Like O-line is like running back. Either you got one or you don't. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I feel about offensive line. So I feel like we're the only one of the few organizations that, I could see if we were developing a guy and bringing him up. But if these guys aren't fighting to be starters now, then, I don't know. Like, Aaron Banks, I don't see him tipping the scale of them paying him real guard money. Guards are getting paid, man. They're going to let him walk. And if you think about the offensive linemen that they got, one thing that they did do this year is they got guys who are all physically impressive, except the one kid that they picked up. But all of these guys are physically impressive. Like, Pooney is very fast. The best thing about him is his reach block. He's got good independent hands. I mean, I went and saw the tape. Same thing with Garrett Kingston. He's just honestly, like, his numbers, he's just freakishly athletic as far as how strong he is, how quick he is in the open field. I just think that right now, if you just take away where they came from, draft status, and looked at the player side by side, I feel like some of these guys could come in here and compete right away.
Then, one guy we didn't even mention, but I know he's a player for a spot, maybe at center, maybe a starting spot, is Ben Barch, because I know they really like Ben Barch. So I don't know. I just, to me, nothing against Brendel, nothing against Feliciano. I like Feliciano. I think Feliciano played at a really high level, but I like him off the bench.
Yeah, he's a journeyman.
I like Feliciano. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. He started a long time. I really like him on the team, but I like him on the bench because he can play guard, he can play left guard, right guard, center. To me, that's where his advantage is that he's super versatile and experienced. And if you had him on the bench, But Pooney looks really, really good. I will say that. And Burford, in a lot of ways, I think is a very good prospect. I know people don't see it with Burford because he regressed last year, but Spencer Burford has almost ideal arm length, body shape, athleticism, smarts. He's got the skill set that you're looking for. It's just a matter of can Forster get it out of him. All right, couple more topics here. Chris Carton or Craig Carton on his show in New York said that the 49ers are far and away the best team in the NFL, and it's not even close. I disagree with this, and I'm a big Niner fan, and I'm very optimistic about their offseason and the season they have ahead. But I think this guy's crazy if he thinks the 49ers are far and away the best team in the NFL. What do you think? If I say Craig Carton says the Niners are far and away the best team in the NFL, what would you say?
I'd say that he's just trying to make a living and get paid.
He's throwing out strong opinions.
Yeah, it's the off season, so you're going to hear a lot of crazy things in the off season because people want clicks and eyes.
How do you say that though when Andy Reid's the best coach in football, when Patrick Mahomes is the best offensive player in football, the best quarterback, when Chris Jones is the best defensive lineman in football, and when Trent McDuffie might be the best defensive back in football right now, and they all are on Kansas City's side? How do you make the Niners far and away the best team in football?
And the Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl, and the team that they just beat
back-to-back,
and the team that they just beat was the San Francisco 49ers. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Sometimes you see a big steaming pile of shit in the ground and you just step over it. You don't ask who did it. You don't say, where did this come from? It's just like, yeah, let me step over this shit and just keep moving. Like, I'm not touching this. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to even take it seriously. But I don't even think we're in that I don't even think we're in that question yet. Maybe we can get there once we start, getting some preseason games out here, and then maybe you can look a little less ridiculous. But right now, this is just him trying to get clicks, and it's working because we're actually having a conversation about it.
Well, top tier. Okay, this is how I would tier out the NFL. Top 3 tiers. Kansas City, top tier by themselves. Second tier, I would put the Niners, the Eagles, the Lions, the Packers, the Ravens, the Texans, and the Bengals.
Yep.
And then in that third tier, I would put Miami, Buffalo,
Dallas.
I actually think Dallas is even below that. But
how many tiers you got?
I would say Miami and Buffalo in that next tier, and maybe the Rams. Maybe the Rams if the Rams got it going defensively. So I mean that's what I got. I mean that's to me the top. To me it's Kansas City in the top tier by themselves. Yeah, and then the Niners in that second tier with Green Bay's coming, Detroit's coming, Philly's getting better. Baltimore. Though the one thing about Philly that is a little concerning is their locker room seemed like they fractured a little bit last year, and then they lose Jason Kelce and they lose Fletcher Cox. And to me, and now they added a better offensive coordinator and the Dallas guy, Kellen Moore. They also brought in Vic Fangio. So they have better coordinators now, and that's going to help. And they obviously added 2 really, really good defensive backs. I think Philly's going to, but that I would wonder about. Like, why did they have locker room discontent? And it seemed to involve Hurts. And it's like, and I don't know. That to me, I don't know the internal workings of their offensive line dynamic, but that would be the one negative on Philly. But other than that, Philly, Detroit, Niners, Ravens, I put Texans. I think they're coming. Bengals. I think they're all in that second tier. And then there's the tier right below of Buffalo, Miami, and, maybe one more team. I would say the Rams, but, I could be convinced it's on that, who that third team is that's in that tier. But basically, that's how I kind of see the tiers in the NFL. All right, couple more here. prediction. It's time for a prediction. We don't do tons of predictions, but we'll do a prediction here. Finish this sentence. The surprise of 49er camp this summer will be who? Who will be the surprise of Niner camp this summer?
The surprise of Niner camp this summer will be Darrell Luter Jr.
Nice. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's time for him. He looks good on the field. I think the biggest thing with him is just processing. He just doesn't have enough time on task. He didn't get a lot of reps, and he came in looking promising from the very beginning. And the bottom fell out when he got that core injury. I think he got a hamstring injury as well, and he just kept having setbacks. I really believe that our corner, our true corner that we need on the outside is Darrell Luter Jr. He's fast as all get out, physical. It's almost as if they went and got another clone of Darrell Luter Jr. and Ronaldo Green, but he's just shorter. He's just not as big, right? I feel like Darrell Luter Jr. Well, all right, so let me put it like this. And I know that it's over now. It's over. But our perfect defense is the first 4 weeks of the season in 2022 before E-Man got hurt. Right before E-Man got hurt, our defense was unfucking real, bro. How nasty were we, bro? Like, we looked like we were playing college teams. That defense was unreal. And then we lost E-Man, and then all of a sudden, people had game plans against us because we were compromised. We've never truly gotten that big opposite corner out of losing Emmanuel Mosley hurt me. We never truly got that other corner there where we were able to really do a lot with our slot, with our nickel corner when we had Williams. What was his first name? K1. Right? K1 used to blitz. He used to have so many multiple looks. He was physical, and he got to be able to do so much because E-Man was on an island. He could handle his business over there. We really never got that other guy. Imagine if we had another corner opposite Mooney that could go hunt for his food. Like, I don't need safety help. You guys get down there in the box and hold things down. So and Darrell Luter Jr. is a guy where he's got a lot of reps. He was a senior. He's a very mature player, very physical guy. That's my guy. It would help our defense tremendously if he's.
I'll say this too. Darrell Luter is a great guy, tremendous guy. I mean, this guy's very mature, very, very, very. He's got it together. I mean, he's married with a child. He's focused. He's determined. He's a great athlete with unbelievable length. That's a great one because he's got, not only does he have potential to be the surprise of camp, he's got the potential to be the best player they have in their secondary because he's got that kind of physicality, that kind of length, that kind of athleticism, that kind of speed. This guy played at South Alabama.
South Alabama. Yep.
South Alabama is a small school. And the Jaguars, I mean, that's a big jump from South Alabama Jaguars to the NFL. And so he got the redshirt year. I expect him to take off in year 2. That's a great one. I'll say this. I think the surprise of camp is going to be twofold. I think it's going to be defensively Jalen Graham. Jalen Graham was great last year in preseason, and he just, whatever reason, couldn't get on the field. And I know there's Devondre Campbell, but once the preseason starts and, they start playing for real, this guy's going to do exactly what he did last preseason, which was fly around and make tons and tons and tons of tackles. So I think his production will lead him to the field. I think Jalen Graham's going to be the surprise of camp defensively. And I'll say the surprise of camp offensively is going to be Jacob Cowing. I think Cowing, I think, in the Niners system with all these other weapons has the potential to change what they look like offensively because he's that dynamic. I mean, he's 4.38, but he's got great ball skills and he runs terrific routes. So it's like, and now you got a quarterback that can put it, on his hands. So he's going to create separation. And then Brock Purdy, if you create separation, he's going to get you the ball. And I just think Cowing could give them a look. Like, he's a receiver that they don't have. He's a look that, like, they didn't have any guy on their team this last year that was like Jacob Cowing.
Like, Cowing is almost like what you would expect out of like a Ray McLeod if he was like a plus athlete. Yeah.
I mean, and if he was more of a receiver, I mean, this guy's little, but he's not small, and he's got ball skills and explosiveness. So I say Cowing on offense, Jalen Graham on defense. Surprise of camp. All right, Pro Football Focus lists Diamador Lenore as the Niners' most underrated player on the roster. Do you agree that Lenore is the most underrated? And if it's not Lenore, who would you nominate as the most underrated 49er?
I mean, truthfully, the most underrated 49er is Dre Greenlaw. In my opinion, he doesn't get nearly as much credit as he deserves.
He's never been a Pro Bowler, right?
He's never been a Pro Bowler. Has he even made all?
That's criminal.
Criminal. Has he ever made an All Pro?
No,
he's never made All Pro. And we know what Dre means to us. We know that he's literally the teeth of our defense. I think that he's one of the most unsung heroes, not only in underrated players, not only on our team, but in the NFL. So I think that it's far and away Dre Greenlaw. I mean, I understand that Diamador Lenore, he's got an emergence, right? He put it all together this year. And, because of how he's played, there's a lot of recognition that he hasn't necessarily gotten that he deserved. I understand that. But from day one, since Dre Greenlaw stepped on the field, like, there was no like warming up period. Like, he came in and we didn't need I forgot the guy's name. What's the kid that we got out of that we got from Tampa? Quan Alexander. Yeah. So I mean, he made him obsolete. So it's Dre, in my opinion.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. I there's no question. I mean, he is the most under-recognized great player that they have.
Yeah.
But I will say, I'll say JJ. I'll say Juwan Jennings. And you just can name so many receivers that, and to me, it's like, do you do it with the money on the table in cold weather in the playoffs when everybody's watching? Do you do it against the best teams in the biggest moments? I mean, he was their best receiver in the Super Bowl. This guy, Juwan Jennings is just such an underrated player. His 40 time is slow. Nobody would ever, you would name so many receivers before you'd ever name him. But in reality, man, you can go to him at any moment and you just feel really confident that he's coming through. So I'm going to say Juwan Jennings. Jennings he's unique. He's a really unique player. I mean, some guys, it's like a racehorse on Derby Day. It's like some people, people, thrive in big moments. Other people wither in big moments. Horses are no different. I mean, and Juwan Jennings is kind of like that. He's the guy that plays big when it matters. He's kind of like the Draymond Green. He's like the Draymond Green of the Niners in that, it's like you put Draymond in a preseason game or an all-star game or something like that, he doesn't look good at all. But if you put him in a finals game, with money on the table and everything hanging in the balance, he's like the best player and had like a 32 point. I think in game 7 of the finals a few years ago, Draymond had like 32 points and 14 rebounds and 7 assists. I mean, he was awesome because he can elevate, and Juwan Jennings is like that. I mean, he was the best receiver the Niners had in the Super Bowl, no doubt.
Well, I mean, but that's, what's congruent with all these players. Like, one thing that all these guys hold is they play like a poor man. All of these guys, they play like they broke.
They're hungry.
They play like they ain't got no money, and I love it. They play hard. They play like they plan for a meal after this game. And really, what happens is
in the NFL, they kind of are.
Yeah.
Right? In the NFL, nothing's guaranteed.
And really, If you look at a Jawan or if you look at a Diamador Lenore, I just made a comment back to Otani in the chat where he said that Diamador Lenore's coverage isn't that good. He asked, he said, well, how good is his actual coverage? But that's just the point, right? It's the same thing with Juwan Jennings. These are players where they don't have skill set on tap, right? Where they can just go touch on it whenever they want to. These guys are underrated and they found niches for themselves in the league because of their attitude and their approach to the game, right? Diamador Lenore he's got decent coverage. He's not locked down, but what gave him his uptick this year wasn't necessarily because his coverage got so much better. It's because he added physicality with it. He got bigger, stronger, and faster. All right. And his attitude changed. His confidence was through the roof last year, right? Where there was literally nobody in front of him that he thought could beat him one-on-one. And the same thing is with Juwan. Like, imagine if Juwan wasn't played to the echo of the whistle and he was just one of those guys that was too cool for school. I'm gonna run my route. I'm gonna try to get open. If it's not a good ball, I will. No, Juwan Jennings is on the field because of all of the extra superlatives that he brings with his game, because he has to, because he knows that his ass ain't in the league if he's not ultra physical, right? You can't have your skill set and, have brother-in-law agreements with DBs. No, you got to make yourself known. You got to carve a niche. You can't be a corner who's undersized and has physicality issues in the league. It's like, no, you got to make a name for yourself. You got to be the hunter, not the hunted. So a lot of these guys, and didn't really take that, copy paste it with Dre Greenlaw. Look at how Dre Greenlaw plays above and beyond. Like, I am giving you, I'm popping off the tape. My performance is undeniable. My contribution to this team cannot be matched. It will not be replaced. So those are the type of players that I like, where they force you to play them. Like, it ain't up to you.
Yeah, to me, I would define it as they are the do or die guys. It's like they play the game like it's do or die, and it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome. And Dre Greenlaw is one of my favorite people to talk to in the room because he loves to play. And I've said to him before, I said, hey man, just between you and me, you'd play this game for free, wouldn't you? And he'd be like, yeah. It's like, he doesn't want that word to get out, but that's how much he loves to play. That's how much he loves to hit. He would play the game for free. Other guys are like, dude, I ain't lifting a finger without money. It's like, I'm not subjecting myself to any of this without big cash. And he's not either, but you know what I'm saying? He loves to play and lives to play. Which if you can get a whole room full of guys like that, man, you're going to be impossible to beat. That's why it's like the personnel side of it. That's why the scouts are so, when the Niners got this Malik Mustafa, that's what this guy is about. This guy plays, it's do or die. And that's why Niner fans are going to love him. And
that's the civil war that's happening across the league in every locker room. It's, how do we stay grounded and rooted enough where we're not reading our own newspaper clippings? We don't think that we're as good as we are. But then how do we pay these guys and still keep the same mantra? How do we keep that culture in our locker room and turn these guys into millionaires, right? So that's why you love like dynasties. That's why you love what Coach Belichick was able to do with the New England Patriots, with the do your job mantra. Like, that's, people don't understand that, but this is really it's sociology. This is like a human experiment where it's, all right, I can get the best out of you now because you don't have anything. But as soon as you get all of the adoration and you get all of the newspaper clippings and you get the money, can you guys show up to work and work just as hard? Can you put it in the same way? So we got to see what our team is going to do now, because really that's bred by competition. That's bred by rookies coming in, not being impressed with the guy in front of them. They're trying to take jobs. They're trying to come in and make themselves noticed by the organization. As far as I'm concerned, like I used to have a coach that used to say this: we're not a team until week 1. We ain't a team until week 1. So y'all can have all of this kumbaya bullshit. Y'all want to stay up, play video games, go eat together and all of that. That's cool. But we're evaluating. So, you guys need to be, I know you got a guy or an OG or a mentor that's in front of you, but too much of this friendly shit.
Yeah.
I need to see some teeth flying during practice. So that's the cloth that I'm from. So I want to see if these rookies are come in here and fight.
Yeah, no question. No question.
To the competition of the team.
And it's funny. And my mentor in the Canadian League was this guy, Bill Urbanek, and I loved him. He died this year, and I miss him terribly. He was a great guy. Defensive line coach for the Bengals in Super Bowl 23, and great coach for the Raiders and Cardinals, and did personnel, worked with me in Canada. And he used to say, Larry, let me tell you, there's 3 reasons guys play football in the NFL. I'm like, okay, go for it. And he's like, some guys play for the money. He's like, some guys play for the girls, and some guys play just so they can fuck shit up. And Dre Greenlaw and Juwan Jennings, they play the game not for the money, not for the girls, just so they can fuck shit up. As far as in other words, they love the physicality, they love the violence, they love hitting, and I
get to legally impose my will.
Right,
this is the only place I get to do it, and I get rewarded for it.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson doesn't play for the money, doesn't play for the girls. He plays to fuck shit up, and there's guys like that all around the league, and there used to be even more of them. And that's what great defensive players do, and even some great offensive players. They like the contact. I mean, what is Juwan Jennings awesome at? He will take your defensive back and he will block them into the freaking bench. We saw it last year. Was it the Detroit game or the Green Bay game where he blocked some guy into the water, into the Gatorade bucket? I mean, it was awesome. That to me is JJ. That to me is Greenlaw. And that to me is Malik Mustafa, by the way.
Yeah, even when you talk to these guys, you talk to Dre, and he's got an abrasive personality. You could tell that where you stand with him. He's not politically correct. He's going to tell you, and he's going to tell you how he feels about you. Did you see the podcast where him and Fred did a podcast on Fred's show? And
I didn't see it, but I heard about it.
And Fred asked Dre what was his first impressions of him when he saw him. He was like, I thought you was trash. Like, I saw your face. That's awesome. He said, I thought you was trash, man. He was like, they drafted this guy? Like,
you gotta be kidding me.
But that's what you want, though. That's the game. It's like, we got a whole season to be teammates, right? Once the ball's rolled out, we get on the bus, cool. We could go against the other guys. But for now, man, I'm 1099, dog. Like,
no, I mean, seriously, I mean, people, you got to play for keeps because nothing's guaranteed. That's the thing. And it's like sometimes, like, when over the course of the year, if it's a slow news day or something, I like to ask, or I'll mix in a question to some of the players in the locker room. I'll be like, hey man, if shit's going down in a bar and you got to have somebody roll up and defend you in here, who are you going with? And man, you heard a lot of Kinlaw because Kinlaw's so imposing, but you heard a lot of Greenlaw, you heard a lot of Juwan Jefferson, or Juwan Jennings, I should say. Guys who are just, they know it's like, these guys are about, defending their brothers and playing the game the right way and being physical. Couple last ones before we jet, and we got 3 real good topics here before we finish. One, the 49ers held an event this week, and it was the event that you referred to where Dre Greenlaw was given the Dwight Clark Award for his dedication, and he absolutely deserved it. And there were a bunch of Niner quarterbacks there, Steve Young, Alex Smith, Jeff Garcia, and Brock Purdy, and they did some interviews with Brock Purdy, and they announced, all the different Niner alums that were at the event. One of them was Alden Smith. And I don't know about you, but to me, that makes me feel so much better about the 49ers that they drafted Alden Smith out of Missouri. They watched him sack the quarterback 19 times in a single season, which is still the franchise record. And he's had huge problems off the field, and he's had a real hard time I know he's had a hard time with alcohol, and he's had a hard time, living life. I mean, he's had some troubles along the way. He's a troubled guy from time to time. And yet there he is at an alumni event. They've put their arms around him. They've welcomed him. To me, that makes me feel good about the 49er organization. This guy did a lot for you guys. This guy, isn't a perfect guy, but he's trying to be better. And obviously, they've got the Golden Heart Fund, which helps guys. It's not considered a handout as much as a hand up, but it helps guys that are having problems adjusting to life after football, or just maybe need money. A guy, there was a Niner whose house burned down last year, and they got him the money to help him rebuild his home, and they didn't have to worry about insurance issues and this and that. And they get him the money very quickly. Sometimes it's medical related, sometimes it's job skill related. But to me, the one thing that I love about the 49ers is the Golden Heart Fund, and the fact that Alden Smith was invited to the alumni event this week. And that tells me a lot awful. I mean, to me, I'm proud to be a Niner fan because they invited Alden Smith to their alumni event, and they still give a shit about Alden Smith, when it would be so easy. And there's so many NFL teams that would just use him up for what he was good for and never help him again as soon as he couldn't help them. Now he can't do a damn thing really to help the 49ers. And yet they're still trying to help him and trying to keep him involved. I don't know. I thought it was really, really cool. Give me your thoughts.
All right. Well, I do. I'm quite fond of Alden Smith. I mean, we all know his the arc of his career, and quite frankly, the downfall. What I will say is, organizations. It's important for organizations to learn how to connect with their fan base in the community in which they serve. And you have to be an asset to the community that you serve, because you're basically living off the life's blood of the city for a game, right? So in order for, when you have a football player or a player come through the organization, and he's done what Alden Smith has done, it's good on you to kind of bridge the gap. Now, I'm under the impression that this would have happened much sooner had it not been for just Alden trying to, balance out his life, right? So one thing I will say is that I listened to the interviews. He sounds balanced, clear, contrite, and he understands that this is a part of his life. He can repurpose some of the best parts of his life to push him forward to where he is now. And I think that's something that's really dope. Not a lot of us can be in a bad situation in our lives and then call back on something that we did when we were at our best. And it can, and the good that came off of that period of time in our life, the radiate so much that I can still call on it in present time. So I'm happy for him. I hope the business relationship between him and the 49ers continues. I hope that he gets ingratiated by the community. And I just really hope he keeps it going, because, football is a fleeting career, right? He had 6 years in the NFL, and then it was over. And out of
all it was 6 years,
dude, he played from 2011 to 2020. He played 11, 12, 13, and 14 with us. Then he played 15 for Las Vegas. Then he took a 5-year break off and played 1 year in 2020 with Dallas.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
too bad, because the guy was an awesome talent.
Yeah.
That was an amazing talent, really was. But I just like, one, it was good to see that he, he looked good, and but obviously, the Niners, Keena Turner, Harris Barton, Ronnie Lott, the guys who really run, Brent Jones, the guys who run the Golden Heart Fund. I just love the fact that they recognize that, this guy doesn't have to be a perfect person. He's trying, and they're trying to help him. And to me, it makes me feel good to be associated with the 49ers, that they are one of two teams, them and the Dolphins are the only two teams that have like a Golden Heart Fund type thing that reaches out and helps past players. And the game, like what was it the stat, like 80% of NFL players are broke within 3 years of retirement. It's like, they need to watch out for one another. And I just felt great seeing Alden Smith out there, and I'm proud to be a Niner fan for the fact that they don't throw him away. They welcome him still to this day, and they're trying to help him. All right, two last ones here. One is from Nick Wright, and I'm going to share the screen here. This is the most ridiculous take I think I've heard all week. I feel so opposite of this, and this guy loves Caleb. Here he is. Here's Nick Wright earlier this week, and then we'll react.
Forget guaranteeing the playoffs.
Don't.
I'm flirting with the idea. I'm asking the bartender.
Don't do that again. That's a crazy.
Does that take want a drink down there?
Oh,
I'm
God.
thinking about buying that take, asking that
goodness.
take out for dinner.
Some take at the end of the bar.
I think Caleb could lead the Bears to the Super Bowl in his rookie season.
Oh, God Almighty!
Can I forget?
He's got Caleb Williams leading the Bears to the Super Bowl in his rookie season. I really am a Michael Penix guy. I don't really like this quarterback class. Didn't like J.J. McCarthy. Didn't really love Drake May the more I watched him. The guys that I kind of believe in this quarterback class, coach, are Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix. I don't really like Bo Nix. Don't really like JJ. Don't really like Drake May. And I don't really believe in Caleb. I just think that Caleb is flashed some amazing skills at times at SC, but SC didn't win, and SC was stacked. So I don't know. I think I'll say this. I love the two backup quarterbacks the Bears have. That kid Badgett from Shepherd, I think, is a decent prospect. And the other guy they just drafted this year from Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, Austin Reed. I think he's an interesting day 3 quarterback prospect. I think to say that Caleb Williams is going to lead the Bears to the Super Bowl this year is just whoa. No way, no how. I can't see it. Give me your thoughts on it. What do you think? Yeah. Where are you on Caleb?
I'm not a fan. I think the game is going to catch up with him. He tries to play with the tempo of the game a lot. He really tries to make the defense move at his pace, but that's not the NFL. The NFL dictates to you, not the other way around, especially the speed of the game. And for what it's worth, what we've seen out of Caleb is him playing with like some really good athletes offensively. You just don't have that type of athleticism on tap in the NFL. Well, at least not matched with another guy that can run just as good. I'm gonna have to be able to see him protect himself. He holds onto the ball way too much, and I want to see what he can do with that offensive line that he's playing with. So the Super Bowl is rich. I'm hoping that he makes it through the season not hurt. So we'll see about that, but
it doesn't seem likely. Okay, I said I've got this will be the last topic, but I actually have 2 last topics. The first one is Ricky Pearsall. Grant and Dave went back and forth on Pearsall. Dave thought he looked great at the mini camp. Grant, not as much. I understand where they're both coming from. My specific breakdown on Pearsall is that I think I can understand what Dave was coming from the standpoint of he looked pretty good as far as, the footwork and a lot of the things that he's billed to have, right? Ball skills, footwork, head and shoulder fakes, ability to separate with great footwork and precision and that kind of thing. He showed all that. But to me, I don't know if he's got that extra gear to maintain separation throughout the route. And I don't know how physical he's going to be over the middle after he starts taking, 4 or 5 hits from C.J. Gardner-Johnson types. Is Pearsall going to be hearing footsteps at that point? So that's my thing. I think he did look good in the minicamp, though they didn't really complete any passes to him. But those are my 2 concerns. I don't know if he's got that extra gear that you need to have to really gain consistent separation. And I don't know after he takes a handful of hits if he's going to keep showing that toughness that he showed at Florida across the middle. Those are my concerns with Pearsall. Now that you've had a chance to kind of watch film on him, digest the whole draft choice, hear what everybody had to say, maybe even see some of the highlights of him running around in minicamp. Supposedly him and Brock are already working together on running routes, so that's a great thing. But and I can see him and Brock being very much in lockstep, but didn't love the Pearsall pick. Would have loved to have seen them go on offensive or defensive line there. Instead, they went receiver. But what do you think? Give me your quick take on Pearsall.
He's polished. He's very polished because he played a lot of ball. I just want to see where his floor is and where his ceiling is. We don't know until we actually see him play. So he could be a low ceiling, high floor guy where this is the most you're going to get out of him. And then you have to see, then it's all about, what we just talked about with the other unsung players, like effort, playing into the echo of the whistle, like trying to get yak. That's one of the things that I would love to see in his game. And I'm not saying that I don't see it now, but we just have to see what it looks like in the NFL. I don't see like an attitude. I don't see necessarily. I see a swag. There's a difference. I see a swag. All of the dancing and all that other bullshit. I get all that. He got his steps down pat. But I'm talking about an attitude. I want to see a confidence around him playing the receiver position. I want to see him to be able to block, not adequately block. I want to see if he's going to run routes and take pride in getting open. That's one thing that you saw out of some of your most famous slots to play the game, out of your Wes Welkers, your Julian Edelmans, your Danny Amendolas, these guys at the slot, they're nasty. These are junkyard dogs, man. All right. They understand what it takes to play the position at a high level, especially between the hashes. And they understand that what it takes. They're basically an extension of the run game, literally, when they're around the line of scrimmage. So I really want to see how he's going to be utilized. I did see the film where he struggles on press man coverage and more athletic DBs. We're going to see how that looks in the NFL because we got tons of DBs, right? You want to keep 7 of them. So
right.
There's going to be more than enough DBs for us to see exactly what Ricky Pearsall is going to give us. But again, I want to give him grace. He's still a rookie. He deserves our grace because of where he got picked. He's got a skill set. Is he a first round pick? I don't know. Is he a first round? Is he drafted if COVID doesn't happen? I don't know. But that's all foregone. That's gone now. I just want to see how they're going to use him. Is he a replacement or is he an addition? There's a difference. Is he replacing somebody on our offense? If so, who? Or is he an addition to the offense? Because if not, we just drafted a first-round pick at receiver who's going to be a spot guy. He's going to be a package guy. So that's what I'm asking. That's where a lot of my comments come from, where I say that I feel like we're going to be a new look offense. We're going to have a lot of different wrinkles. We're going to have some spread. We're going to go a lot of shotgun. We're going to really try to let Brock be a point guard out there, picking and sliding, getting the ball out. I think that's what Ricky Pearsall is for. Now, that would be great because it would actually prove that, all right, you actually did need this piece if this is what you were thinking going into the season. You needed another reliable guy. I get it. But if he's just sitting on the shelf and he actually replaces somebody, then you have to ask yourself, all right, so did we really get Ricky Pearsall to replace Debo? Like, you know what I mean? Like, say we move on Debo before the trade deadline, and then it's like, wow, so this was their Debo replacement? So there's so many moving targets with this situation, and we gotta let time play it out. But you're right. It was a head scratcher, but for good reason, because we don't know what their perspective is on why they drafted him.
It's funny. It's like I want to be optimistic because, as you said, there's the some of the film looks pretty good, and there's reasons to be optimistic.
This is a great comment, Larry. I'm sorry, but Otani Interpreter just made a great comment. He said the offense has to resolve. It's necessary. CMC reached his peak last season. At some point, he will fall off.
Yeah,
right.
No question.
And he's such a special piece that you do have to ask yourself, what is the next piece? and it would be to lean in on Brock.
It is interesting though, as far as if I want to be optimistic and about all their picks, but if you really, are looking at things objectively, you would say, they thought Dante Pettis and Jalen Hurd were good. Well, they weren't, but they also found Juwan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne. They thought Joe Williams was good and Trey Sermon was good, but they weren't. But they found Elijah Mitchell and JP Mason. They thought Trey Lance was good, but he wasn't. But they found Brock Purdy. And in some ways, I almost feel like they feel Ricky Pearsall's good, and he may not be, but Jacob Cowan may be really special. Yeah.
But what sucks about that is
they kind of like double. They kind of
they double down. So we're really losing a pick,
right? And it's and that's what brings me to the last topic, which was Steve Young was on 95.7 The Game, and they were talking about Brock Purdy and what's going to happen when they pay Brock Purdy $50 million. And Steve made the point that like this year was the Niners' year. The division was down. Detroit was too young. Green Bay was too young. Philly was in a hangover. Kansas City was in a transition year, and the Niners couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
This was their year, and they couldn't get it done. Now, we'll see. We'll see. But his point was that when the Niners do wind up paying Brock Purdy $50 million, and it sounds like that's the road they're going down, that they're going to have to be better in the draft. They're going to have to hit on day 1 and day 2 and day 3. They're not going to just be able to, hey, you know what? We fucked up day 1 and we drafted Reuben Foster and we drafted, Solomon Thomas, but that's okay because we found DJ Jones in the 6th round. We drafted Joe Williams and Dante Pettis and Jalen Hurd, but that's okay because we found Juwan Jennings in the 7th round. And we drafted Lance, and he can't play, but that's okay because we found Brock Purdy. Now, if you're going to pay Brock Purdy $50 million, it's not going to be okay to miss on your 1st and 2nd and 3rd round picks and save the draft by what you do after the draft or in free agency or on day 3. If they're going to compete and stay as a Super Bowl contender during the era that they're about to embark on, where they pay Brock Purdy $50 million, they're going to have to be better personnel evaluators than they've been thus far. So, simple as that.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
Let's finish with this topic because you and Jesse did a stream on this, and I think Jesse was arguing that Brock Purdy's not worth the $50 million and that it's a major problem. You were kind of going the other way and kind of defending it. If I'm wrong by that, tell me I'm wrong. But give me an idea, or give the audience an idea of your thoughts on where this is going, because we have one more year of Brock Purdy cheap, or the Niners could have multiple years if as far as they don't have to sign him long term. I mean, Dieter Kurtenbach was on with me Thursday night. He suggests that they let him play on the franchise tag, a la Kirk Cousins, for a couple of years. To just have that much more, since he hasn't played a lot of football, it's only been a couple of years, you'll have that much more film and feeling on the quarterback to know what he is before you extend him to a big money long-term deal. They seem like they're all in on Brock. I can't picture them making him wait to be paid, but what do you think? What do you think the Niners are going to look like when they're paying Purdy $50 million?
Well, once they pay him $50 million, then automatically the clock starts on Kyle Shanahan, because you don't pay a quarterback $50 million and lose with them and get rid of the quarterback. You get rid of the head coach. So that's number one. The moment Brock Purdy gets paid, the clock starts on Kyle Shanahan. The real clock starts on Kyle Shanahan, right? You paid your quarterback. You're linked with him now. Now you get to get looked at like a coach, like everybody else, okay? So that's one. Because that's one thing that Kyle's been getting away with for a long time, is that, you got this guy that's super cheap and you need to do something with him, and you haven't, and you need to do it now. So that's one. Two, what is $50 million when he needs to get paid $50 million, right? The market is ever flowing. All right. So we don't know what that is in the concept of.
Goff just got 53.
Right. Goff got 53 now, because maybe in 3 to 4 years, 53 may be what Dak was saying 40 was when Dallas screwed the pooch and didn't pay him early, right? So we don't understand where that 50 lies as far as what the market is going to look like when it's time to pay him. That's 2.
Well,
3.
what we do know is that when they do pay him, he'll be among the highest paid, and then over the course of time, he won't be.
All right, but then that's also 3. If he does get the money, how is the money allocated on the cap? And how did they structure it for them to have outs when they need to, and to be able to restructure him in order to bring other people on? You don't make $50 million, okay, and then walk out the back door and say, you guys handle the rest. That's not the way business is done, okay? If you are making that type of money with the team, we're partners, all right? You're a 1099 employee, all right? You're a contractor. All right. So as far as that's concerned, there's a couple of things that are going to be in this contract, and also a couple of things that are going to be implied as well. Meaning that if you're going to be, if you're going to get paid that type of money from an organization, that's a responsibility. All right. It's not, oh, you earned this. No, when you get to the negotiation table, when it's time for contracts, it's not for what you've done. What you've done has earned you the right to negotiate. When you get to the negotiation table for contracts, it's about what you're going to do. All right. What you've done is already over. So for me, I feel like you just have to go back and look at the history of time. Who are the best 2 quarterbacks that are renowned as some of the best guys to do it? Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, right? These are the active dynasty guys, right? Tom Brady was the last one. Patrick Mahomes is actively adding on to his. And one thing that is emblematic of both of those players is that they gave team-friendly deals. They got their money, they got paid, but they also structured their deals in ways that did not strap the team year to year and was able for them to maneuver and add pieces around them. And I think that's what Brock should and would do. So for me, I'm not even really worried about the money. You know what I'm saying? I understand we like counting other people's pockets, but this has been done before. This is not an impossible feat. Now, I understand that the elephant in the room is, but is Brock worth the 50 million? Is he going to give the skill set that would garner that type of money? Because when you make that type of money, there are a lot of things that are on you. We shall see. We have to see. But as far as the fiscal side of it, and making sure that we have a team around him, that can happen. He's gonna play ball.
The guy's won an awful lot of games, so they're gonna have to pay him at the top of the scale. That's the thing. If he had won the Super Bowl, they'd even be paying him more. But yeah, I mean, they're just gonna have to be better, because the margins for when you're paying your it's a hard cap, so you're paying your quarterback X. And that X is $15+ million. Guess what? You better hit on your draft picks, and you better, maybe even have a few more draft picks and a few more bites of the apple. You may want to give yourself a few more, picks just for the failure rate of picks, because how badly you need that cheap labor to round out the rest of your roster.
But at $50 million a year, there's one thing that Brock has to be, and he's got to be consistently the reason why we win games.
Right. Well, I mean, they just have to win games. I mean,
not for $50 million a year.
But I mean, he's
not making. You can't just win games with a quarterback making $50 million a year.
But my point is,
he's got to be the reason why you win.
Well, but here's the thing: you wouldn't win games if you don't have enough talent. So it's like
that's the conversation for $980,000 a year, Brock. That's the conversation for that.
Well, I mean,
once Brock gets paid $50 million, he has to be the reason why we win.
But what team? Okay, name me a quarterback then that wins games, but he's not the reason.
You said what?
Name me a quarterback that wins games. My point is, you just need to win games, because if you win games, there is no such thing as the quarterback that wins tons of games, but he's not part of the reason.
No. If
you win games, I feel like you're
missing me. You're missing me. I didn't say be a part of winning games. That's true. Let me when we play in games and we are in the balance of winning or losing that game and the ball is in Brock's hands, he has to be the reason why we win that game. We cannot lose games because the quarterback play was not on par. He can have bad games, right? He can have a bad day, but the same trajectory of his career now, where even though Brock has had bad games, he's been lights out as far as competitive and consistent. That has to carry on. And it can't be because of Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, or Brandon Ayuk or Christian McCaffrey. It has to be because of Brock Purdy.
We're going to find out how special, how much of it is Brock Purdy and how much of it are his weapons, because there's going to be a transition from some of these weapons. Debo's probably only got one more year with the Niners, and who knows how much longer does George Kittle really have? He's 30. You get old quick in this game. So, yeah, Brock Purdy's going to have to show that he can win with Mason Pline, and he can win with Isaac Guerrendo, and he can win throwing it to Jacob Cowing. And but yeah, he's going to have. There can't be any regression from Brock
that's
Purdy,
my point.
otherwise it won't. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit. There's 3 supers. You got to read them for me because I'm so blind now with my new contacts.
Man, what the hell is going on with that, man? Are you all right now?
Seriously. Well, no, what happens? I got new contact lenses to help me because I'm nearsighted, and I see awesome. Except now they overdid it, so now I'm a little farsighted. So now I'm a little.
So you
blurry.
have to tell them to like recalibrate the prescription.
Well, no, we ordered new. I ordered new lenses, but it's just going to take a few weeks for them to get here.
Okay. All right. So Speaker Box for $5 says Gauntlet of Good D, Larry. Pause. Jesus. You said Gauntlet of Good D. Dale for $5 steak says, I think we should have some talk around our special teams. What do you guys see? Because UDFA special teams suck sometimes for us at the worst times.
Well, I mean that there's been so many changes to the return game. I don't think any of us really know. I think you're going to have to give us a few weeks to see it and then evaluate it. I will say this. The 49ers have given themselves lots and lots of return options. If they want the conservative guy who catches every ball but doesn't really make any big runs, they can go with Trent Taylor. If they want to go with somebody who
i.e. the guy that sucks.
Right. Or if they want to go with a home run hitter, they could go with Danny Gray, or they could go with Jacob Cowing, or they could go with Juice, or they could go with Guerendo, who maybe breaks tackles. I mean, they've got, I think they,
or maybe Debo
or Cody Schrader, or McCaffrey. I mean, it really is going to be interesting. It could be a receiver, it could be a running back. They got a bunch of different weapons. That's the beauty of I think they kind of set themselves up to kind of explore that all throughout the summer. They're going to have more options for return guys in this camp than they've ever had before in any camp I can remember. That's for sure.
Didn't they just pick up the special teams coach, the new one?
Well, going into last year, Schneider.
Yeah.
Schneider came from Seattle. So they just
PD Niner, PDX Niner 499 says inside offensive line is my concern. Timing and anticipation can beat man D, but not when getting blown up in the middle to throw off Brock's vision and timing. Run D too. Yeah. He doesn't have the time on the inside if he's getting guys pushed in his lap.
I'm really eager to see Kingston because it's funny. I did a live stream with Todd Husak, who's the former voice of Stanford. He really likes Kingston. I also have a buddy who scouts and was down in Southern California and who's actually been on USC's campus and watched tons of their film and knows their culture. And he says Kingston's a freaking monster. So I'm eager to see it. I'm eager to see it.
Yeah, he's got the body. He does.
I mean, he put up a bunch of reps, and he's definitely got the foot quickness. What's
the kid that we were fanboying over? That was super strong. The kid out of Shepherd, Joey Fisher. Remember that kid
who got heat exhaustion in 70 degrees in minicamp, and then got cut. They gave him the most guaranteed money of any of their undrafted free agents last year, and cut him. So it just kind of goes to show that it's a lot of it's guesswork, man. You don't know. You just don't know who's gonna fire, who's not gonna fire. That guy just was short-armed and too stiff.
Yeah, strong as all get out.
Yeah, very strong. Cassius Boyd drops one here. He says, "What is it? Can what?
Can DP slide to center?" Dominic Pony.
Yeah, he played center in the Senior Bowl and did a great job against Michael Hall. So yeah,
Mhm.
Pooney could be a center too. That's what I'm saying. It's like between Kingston and Pooney and Burford and Drake Nugent, they have some guys who they could go with on the interior. They still are leaning on the same tackle trio, right? It's Jalen Moore, it's obviously Trent and McKivitz. They did pick up Hubbard, who's a veteran who's played a decade, so maybe he can do something. And the last thing, Kev titled the stream. He titled the stream. He said basically what the Niners need to do or change to win their 6th Lombardi. So I'll throw that one to you on the way out the door here, Coach. What do the Niners need to do or change to win their 6th Lombardi?
Get an OC, pick up 2-minute drill, and start playing more than one running back.
Okay. Those are great answers. I would say to win it all, Kyle Shanahan needs to change his thinking on down and distance to be more along the lines of the analytics crowd, which the Eagles are a big part of, the Ravens are a big part of. The Niners, I think one of the reasons they lost the Super Bowl is that they didn't have the right plan when they got to 3rd and 4. When they got to 3rd and 4, Philly runs the ball and then gets to 4th and 1 and tush pushes it. When the Niners get to 3rd and 4, they pass the ball, and then on 4th down, they kick the field goal. And it's like, to me, it's the fundamental change of what you ought to do on 3rd and 4. Shanahan's still thinking of a short timing pass, and I think that's got to be a rundown to set up a 4th down, go for it. And I think he needs to change that mindset going forward. I think he needs to adapt to what Philly does. I think if the Niners had run the ball on 3rd and 4, they probably would have had 4th and 1, and then you go for it on 4th and 1 and you make it, and there is no Patrick Mahomes at the end. You know what I mean? Because you won it by staying on the field offensively, but instead they kicked the field goal, gave the ball back to Mahomes. So I don't know. It's just, to me, it's that mindset on 3rd and that third medium where the Niners look to pass it, and then a timing pattern, and then if they don't make it, they punt or kick the field goal, where the Eagles are, looking at 3rd and 4 as let's get to 4th and short so we can convert. And I think that the Niners, against some of these explosive offensive teams like Kansas City, if you're really going to beat them, you got to take the ball out of Mahomes' hand at the end. And you do that by converting and staying on the field more offensively. So I think he needs to change his mindset when it comes to down and distance and how to set it up in key situations. I think he needs to be more aggressive going for it. And I think also defensively, this new coordinator, whether it's Staley, whether it's Sorensen, they have to have a better coordinated blitz package, and their back end has to be tied to their front end. The one big complaint I would have for Steve Wilks is, there were so many examples last year of where what you were doing up front was not tied to what you were doing on the back end. The Cincinnati game comes to mind, where you were trying to speed up Joe Burrow, and yet you were playing off coverage, and so you're speeding him up, and he's throwing 8-yard patterns to guys who are wide open. So to me, it seems like on the defensive end, the whole thing's got to be, everybody's got to be on the same page. Your rush and your coverage have to be tied together. And for Shanahan, to me, it's about down and distance and going for it and managing the game a little bit better. Those are the things that I think they need to do better. And of course, the other one is, you know what? get into one of these big games, and instead of being -2 in turnovers or even, how about be +2 in turnovers? You know, I mean, that's another way you can win. You know, that's how Tampa beat Mahomes, is they were I think +2 in turnovers that day. And that made a huge difference. So anyway, that good one from Kev's perspective, though, because I think there definitely need to be some fundamental changes of how the Niners run their game and how they think about the game and how they manage the game to determine whether or not they're going to get this thing done or not. All right, Coach, what do you got cooking the rest of your Saturday? Beautiful weather out here in the Bay. It's going to be, I would say, 75 degrees, and we get that great cool spring weather before the heat starts. It'll be 90s here in a few weeks.
Yeah, man. Right now, getting the office together.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh, Fury and Usyk fight tonight. I'm gonna watch the fight tonight.
Nice.
So
What do you got?
Usyk is faster. He's more skilled. And I thought that Tyson Fury was gonna come like out of shape, but it's looking like he's taking the fight seriously. And he's coming in shape. And by weighing, I think this is undisputed heavyweight title. He's gonna come in at least like 30 pounds heavier than Usyk, maybe 40. He's just a big man. But I got Fury, but I do think this one's gonna go to distance.
Nice. We got a couple more chats here. Did we get this one?
Yes.
We got that one. Did we get this one?
No, Cassius, my friend.
Okay.
Cassius, my friend.
And then we got this one.
I have a feeling our secondary will be the story this year. More coverage sacks. Okay. Cassius Boyd.
I will say this. If there was one thing people say, what did the Niners really get out of this draft? I think they got 2 alphas in Malik Mustafa and Renardo Green that I think are going to play a lot this year. So that they missed those alphas when they lost Jimmy Ward and Emmanuel Mosley. They went through all of last year not having those 2 extra alpha leaders. Now they've added a couple of young alphas in Mustafa and Renardo Green, and I can't wait for those guys to hit the ground and really make an impact. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring us as well. And thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Coach, have a great rest of your Saturday. We'll talk to you next week. For everybody out there, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful.